With Koga leading our main trio of heroes, they travel through the Safari Lands. The group briefly passes by Laramie Ranch, who are getting ready for a big race in the coming days. The group wishes them luck, and then continues on with their travels. Eventually, they reach a tent which Koga states to be the ranger station. He explains how Jenny likely is not here currently, but they can wait for her to return. So, the group decides to wait, with Ash and Brock taking the time to train so Ash and his Pokemon can get stronger in preparation for a future gym. When Officer Jenny arrives, she witnesses the Absol in Ash's possession as it trains against Brock's Geodude. Immediately, she rushes Ash and begins to bombard him with questions over where he got Absol. This throws Ash for a loop, but Koga is able to step in and calm the situation. When things are more settled, Ash explains how he met Absol in Rock Tunnel, due to him and his rival Gary visiting it. Ranger Jenny makes note of this, before explaining why she was so concerned. Apparently, she had received reports from Kanto's police system about how she needed to be on the lookout for Pokemon poachers. Apparently, a shipment of rare Pokemon from many different regions had occurred. One truck was recently found, but many of the Pokemon were not recovered. Many were supposed to be looking into locating these invasive species and moving them back to their original habitats, if not finding them a safe location on a reserve. Seda asks how many Pokemon were being transferred by Pokemon poachers, to which Ranger Jenny brings them inside, and finds a list of them. She marks off Absol being found and states how she'll have to report that. She then shows a list of around 25 different Pokemon which had been poached. They were able to receive this list from the poachers who were apprehended, but many of the Pokemon were still unaccounted for. Brock makes note that none of the Pokemon listed are primarily aquatic or avian creatures, which Koga states that this is because those types of creatures tend to migrate seasonally regardless. There would be no point in them being poached unless they were substantially rare. Ranger Jenny notes that this is correct, but despite this, it has not made it easier to locate all of the missing Pokemon. Even the Elite Four has been informed, and yet there's been very little headway made currently. Regardless, the Ranger decides that this is enough for now, and so asks why they have decided to visit her. It's here that Seda gets to explain how she is interested in learning about what it means to be a Pokemon Ranger. A smile forms on Jenny's face as she begins to explain what it means to be a Pokemon Ranger. The goal of a Pokemon Ranger is to defend nature. While some do catch and train Pokemon, there are many Pokemon Rangers who don't, and instead utilize a device known as a capture styler. They obtain these stylers upon beginning their training as student Rangers. The main schools which train Rangers are located in some regions that are far off. However, once one graduates, they're able to become Area Rangers, and are given specific locations to watch over. An Area Ranger is what Jenny admits to be, and she is one of the few to have been located in the region of Kanto, as unlike some other regions, Kanto does not hold nature in an extremely high regard. On occasion, a ranger will be sent from another region to handle something in Kanto, but none of them will stay in Kanto like her. Ash asks why she was asked to watch over this area, to which how she states, unlike the Safari Zone, which will allow people to capture Pokemon, the area in which they are currently is a reservation area, where capture is prohibited. She is here to watch over the Pokemon which reside here, and stop any attempts from trainers or Pokemon poachers. Seda asks if Jenny has a capture styler, to which Jenny states how she does, though she rarely uses it on the Pokemon in the area. Instead, she tends to rely on her partner Pokemon she received upon becoming a Ranger, this being a Pokemon she calls Shieldon. Seda asks if it would be alright for her to see a Pokemon Ranger in action. That way she can better understand what it's like. Jenny agrees with this, before deciding that she'll take the 10-year-old with her. She has to go on another survey of the lands soon anyway, so Seda and the others are more than welcome to see what the job is like. Koga, of course, chooses not to join them, stating how it's about time he got going and began his training journey. The group says goodbye to Koga, with Ash promising to meet him in the Indigo League. It's then that the survey of the Safari Lands begins. The group drives across the land in a jeep, with Ranger Jenny introducing them to any Pokemon species that they happen to pass by. They even pass by a group of Kangaskhan, who Jenny tells them that they don't want to startle at all, as Kangaskhan will charge if they believe their young are in danger. Little do they know, there is a boy watching them from the trees. As they aren't bothering the Kangaskhan, he doesn't strike or anything, but he still keeps his eyes on the group's jeep. Eventually, the group makes their way back to the ranger station. Seda asks if that's all Jessie has to do as a ranger, to which she states that luckily this is all for the time being. She patrols multiple times a day, each time praying no one is foolish enough to try and poach the Pokemon. Seda asks what she'd have to do if poachers did appear, to which Jenny states that she and Shieldon will take them out, and if Pokemon attacks fail, or she and Shieldon survey the area separately from each other, then she'll resort to her rifle. The mention of the firearm surprises the group, to which Ash states that it's probably good he didn't try to catch any Pokemon in this area. Seda asks if Jenny has ever been bored as a Pokemon Ranger, to which she shakes her head. She has Shieldon to keep her company when there's no action. If anything, she prefers when there actually isn't any action, as that means the Pokemon are safe. Besides, sometimes a ranger can be scheduled to go to different lands, depending on what kind of ranger they are. If Seda were interested in becoming a ranger, there's no guarantee she'd be placed at a ranger station which never gives her missions outside a particular area. This gives Seda some food for thought. Our trio decides to stick around the ranger station for a while, Brock taking the time to study Shieldon and experiment with some new Pokemon food that it could possibly like. Ash returns to training his Pokemon, adamant on getting stronger so he can face rivals like Gary, Misty, and Koga in an all-out battle. Meanwhile, Seda continues to shadow Ranger Jenny, trying to learn every little detail of how being a Pokemon Ranger is. As Ash is training Charmeleon against Gyarados, his Absol takes the time to lie in the afternoon sun. Everything is peaceful for the disaster Pokemon. At least at first. Abruptly, Absol bolts upright, getting a bad feeling about something. This catches the attention of Ash, who asks what's wrong. Without warning, Absol takes off to the northwest of the ranger station. At first, the 10-year-old is confused, but then realizes what this could mean. Without warning, he yells to the others, before charging after Absol as well. Seda is confused as to what Ash is talking about. Jenny, however, immediately begins to turn on a group of monitors on her desk. They blink to life, before the screens revealed multiple parts of the Safari Land. Seda recognizes many of these parts from their survey of the land and asks what they're for, to which Jenny states how she can't be out there all the time, so she needed a way to check on the land while not constantly surveying on foot or in her jeep. On the screens, she notices that the herd of Kangaskhan from before are all stepping away as ground begins to crack before them. An earthquake. How it's happening in these parts, Jenny is unsure, but they have no time to waste. Immediately, she rushes over to her jeep and begins to start it up. Just as the engine roars into action, Seda and Brock both call out that they're coming with her. She tries to explain how it's too dangerous, but both make the point that Ash and his partner Absol are already out there. They can't just sit idly by and hope he ends up being okay. With this, Jenny allows them to join her, though she warns them to stick close to her and do as she says. Both of them nod, before Brock makes a declaration that he'll be able to protect Jenny, should the elements try to claim her. It's then that Brock is not so subtly reminded of the firearm in Jenny's possession. With him shutting up, Jenny floors the gas, and they speed to the location of the Kangaskhan. When they arrive, they see the ground splitting open. Several Kangaskhan are already running for dear life. However, one is yelling out towards the crack in the ground before it. The group leaps out of the jeep and rushes over to Kangaskhan's side, only to realize that the reason for her distress is due to her child being down in the crack. It's clinging with everything it has, while nearby, Ash and Absol are doing everything they can to try and reach it. Jenny calls out to Ash, telling him that it's too dangerous, only for Ash to not respond, being far too focused on trying to save the baby Kangaskhan. As Ash slowly gets closer, Absol barks out to him. Part of the ground that he was clinging to crumbles, but thanks to Absol's warning, Ash is able to react in time, and slowly but surely, he's able to inch closer to baby Kangaskhan. Brock asks Jenny if there's anything she can do about Ash's situation, but Jenny says no. Normally she would have a winch on her Jeep she could use, but currently it was in for repairs. She could, however, learn the cause of this natural disaster with the help of Shieldon. Sure enough, the rock type uses a move called Metal Sound on the ground, and found that there was something in the nearby area that was causing the earthquake, meaning this disaster, at least to start, was anything but natural. With a pop, Sada's Metapod and Bulbasaur are released from their Pokeballs. There, Sada tells Brock and Jenny to go ahead and find the cause of these quakes. She'll stay here and try to help Ash. Brock finds this to be a genius idea, as Sada's Metapod and Bulbasaur could make a good lift with their respective abilities, especially since Bulbasaur had been training its vines to lift heavier weights. So, Jenny and Brock rush off, Shieldon leading the way. Just as Ash gets the baby Kangaskhan, Sada commands String Shot and Vine Whip. The two create a powerful rope which wraps around Ash and the baby. Sada calls for Absol's assistance, to which the Dark type complies, and so the quartet do all they can to pull Ash and the baby up from the depths. Slowly but surely, they have the weight of the two. Suddenly, the makeshift rope begins to slip. Harsh winds blow, making it far more difficult to pull. But just when it seems like they might lose their grip on Ash and the baby, the mother Kangaskhan and a strange boy leap into action. Both grab on and join the group as they pull, until finally, Ash and the baby Kangaskhan are safe. The baby rejoins its mother, and the strange boy seems to order them to rejoin the herd. Sada and Ash watch in astonishment as the boy is able to communicate like the Kangaskhan, and get them to leave. But just before the two can say anything, the boy leaves as well. The two consider following the boy, but then Sada remembers that Jenny and Brock were trying to locate the cause of these quakes. Prioritizing that instead, the two head out, Bulbasaur and Metapod following not too far behind. Meanwhile, Brock and Jenny locate the cause of the quakes. A group of men in dark gray using the Pokemon Rhydon and Sandslash, as well as forcing a grayish-blue creature Jenny and Brock don't quite recognize to mess up the area with moves like Fissure, Stomping Tantrum, and Earthquake. Jenny knows what they are as soon as she sees them. Pokemon poachers, likely using these Pokemon to make enough cracks in the ground and limit the Kangaskhan's movements. That way they can swoop in and capture them all to sell them to the highest bidder. Jenny immediately yells out that the two poachers are under arrest, while having Shieldon use a high-pitched metal sound to cause them some pain. As the poachers cover their ears, Brock calls out his Onix, having it slither around them in order to block off their means of escape. One of the poachers groans before barking orders to the other Pokemon, commanding that they each use Dig. Sandslash and Rhydon immediately act, but it's only after a shock occurs against the grayish-blue creature that it digs as well. The three Pokemon dig underground, but Brock brings out Psyduck, Zubat, and Geodude. Jenny asks him what he's planning, to which Brock simply states that she should just watch and learn. First, Geodude strikes Psyduck on top of the head, causing it a headache. At first, Jenny is confused, but this was what Brock wanted. Psyduck's eyes glow blue. And suddenly, all three Pokemon are lifted out of the ground. Then, Zubat follows up with Supersonic, confusing the three Pokemon, essentially rendering them unable to attack. The second poacher growls before bringing out another Pokeball. Just before he can send out anything, though, Jenny's Shieldon attacks with a powerful Iron Head to the man's gut, rendering him unable to act. It's at that moment that Ash and Seda show up, with Seda acting quick and stringing up both poachers with String Shot from her Metapod. Jenny then takes their Pokeballs from them, meaning it is now fully over for the poachers. The next day, a helicopter comes to pick up the poachers. Much to our hero's surprise, one of the men who steps out of the helicopter is Lieutenant Surge. Ash asks what the lieutenant is doing here, to which Surge states how just because he's no longer actively working in the military, doesn't mean he doesn't help out local law enforcement from time to time. He then asks Ash if he's been getting stronger, to which Ash gives him a salute, stating that he and Machamp will be at the Pokemon League before he knows it. Surge smiles, not expecting this level of respect from the same boy he battled in Vermilion. He then states that if Ash finds himself with enough free time after collecting all 8 badges, that he should come by Vermilion City again. He'll be sure to whip him and the rest of his baby Pokemon into shape. Then they'll truly be fit for the league. Ash nods, stating that he'll be sure to do just that. Meanwhile, Seda asks Jenny what will happen to the Pokemon that were in the poacher's possession, to which Jenny states that they'll be released back into the wild, with them being monitored by rangers like her. Though, the grayish-blue Pokemon that was in their possession was needing to be relocated. It turned out that this was one of the Pokemon which was on her list. She just didn't recognize it before. It was a rare Pokemon from the Sinnoh region, by the name of Gible. Originally, she had heard reports of it being sighted in the Johto region, but rangers were never able to find it. Looks like the poachers had beaten them to it, though now it was safe. They were going to need to return it to its rightful home, so she was going to try and contact someone from Sinnoh to come pick it up. Seda looks over to Gible, seeing it roughhousing with Ash's Charmeleon. Apparently the two were equally battle-loving. Jenny then tells Seda that she was very brave out there yesterday. Not only was she willing to act, but she was quick and smart about it too. Jenny believed that Seda would have what it takes to become a Pokemon Ranger. In fact, she even offers to put in a good word for Seda, so she can go to a school in the distant Almia region. Seda thinks about it for a moment, before stating she appreciates the offer, but would like to keep traveling with her friends for a little while longer. Jenny says that's perfectly fine, and that the offer will always be on the table. She also states that if Seda needs anything, to give her a call. Seda thanks her, but it is time to depart now. The trio, now being recommended to head to the actual Safari Zone area, decide to get on their way. However, when Ash calls back Charmeleon, Gible looks quite upset about it. It seems as though Gible and Charmeleon have become good friends, as when Ash, Seda, and Brock say their goodbyes and head on their way to the Safari Zone, Gible decides to dig underground while none of the remaining officers are looking. With the group about to reach the Safari Zone, Ash begins to sing with anticipation. So much so that, even despite annoying Brock with it, Eventually, the entire trio is singing together. That is, until a man comes out of a small building nearby and yells at the group to be quiet. Ash asks the man what his problem is, to which the man decides to threaten the 10-year-old with death by revolver. Reasonably terrified by the armed man, the trio profusely apologizes, before learning that this man is Kaiser, the warden of the Safari Zone. The group are brought into the warden's office, where Ash is presented with a basket of safari balls, a fishing rod, and is told the rules of the Safari Zone. Only safari balls and these rods are allowed to be used in the Safari Zone, and if they try any funny business, he'll burn them with his pistol, Thunderbolt. To show he means business, he once again points the gun at Ash's head. It's then that Zeta and Brock notice an image of a younger Kaiser holding a Dratini. Brock mentions how he had heard a rumor that a Dratini lived in the Safari Zone, but at that mention, Kaiser leaps over and snatches the photograph from them, insisting that there is no Dratini. Ash is about to argue otherwise, but already notices Kaiser is reaching for his revolver again, so he shuts his trap. It's then that Kaiser leaves with the picture, going outside where the others cannot see or hear him. Ash then chooses to call Professor Oak for more information. Here they learn that the Dratini was found by Kaiser himself, which caused trainers from all over to flock to the Safari Zone, which resulted in the destruction of the Safari Zone's ecosystem due to how many Pokemon were being caught. Since then, rules have been put in place, and Dratini has never been found. Zeta asks why Kaiser flaunts his firearm so much, to which Professor Oak mentions how the Safari Zone area is run by himself and Koga. Koga and Kaiser essentially act as the law of the land for the area, and have been given the power to do so. Ranger Jenny is in a similar situation, though as a ranger her power seems more justified. Though, Kaiser is also always on edge due to everything he caused by finding Dratini. The group then decides to go out and start catching Pokemon. First, they see a horde of Tauros, which Ash and Brock both catch one of. Then, they hide in the bushes in order to observe a nearby Rhyhorn. Ash is about to throw another ball, but Zeta stops him, using what she'd learned from watching Ranger Jenny to notice that something is approaching. Sure enough, a Tauros herd runs by, and Rhyhorn ends up getting away. Zeta then mentions she's nowhere near as good as Shieldon's Metal Sand, but she was still able to notice some things. It's then that the group tries some fishing, but they don't get any good bites, as none of them have any good enough lures. They mostly find Magikarp, and since Ash already has Gyarados, he doesn't feel the need to catch any of the carp they find. It's then that Ash sees another Rhyhorn, and tries to catch it. However, just as he throws the Safari Ball, something pops out of the ground, spooking Rhyhorn and causing it to run away. Much to Ash's surprise, though, the Safari Ball still catches something. But what? Slowly, the trio approaches the Safari Ball, only for Ash to find that it had shrunk down inside. Ash picks it up and tries to open it, but instead it just disappears. It's then that Ash is told because he's caught 6 Pokemon, that one was now his 7th, and has just been transferred to Professor Oak's lab back in Pallet Town. Ash asks if there was a way he could find what Pokemon it was, to which Brock tells Ash that when he finishes catching Pokemon here, then they can just call Professor Oak about it. So, they continue to search for Pokemon to catch. Unfortunately for Ash, most of the time he tries to find a Pokemon, something ends up getting in the way, usually being a Tauros herd that Zeta has to warn Ash of as they stampede by. Ash just manages to find a Tangela, before Kaiser yells at them from the distance, exclaiming how they better not take up any more time in there today, or else they'll have to answer to him. Not wanting to waste any more time, Ash quickly throws the Safari Ball, before returning to leave immediately. As the trio walks away, Ash hears a click sound, signifying that he had caught something. He's about to turn around to grab the ball, when Brock reminds him that if Tangela truly was caught, then it'll be transferred to Professor Oak. They'll just have to get it from him. The trio meets back up with Kaiser, who tells them that if they're really keen on catching some more Pokemon, they can just come back tomorrow. But given how Kaiser kept them in line, Ash isn't really sure about that. Inside, Ash calls up Professor Oak, to which the professor states how he's glad to hear from him so soon, assuming Ash is interested in swapping around his Pokemon. Ash asks what he managed to catch, to which Ash isn't entirely sure. Other than his Tauros, he actually didn't see what he caught. Unfortunately, there weren't too many, though. Oak states that that's alright, as catching too many Pokemon may mean Ash wouldn't be able to properly train each of them. Still, he'll see what Pokemon are with him now. Moments later, Professor Oak returns, looking quite shocked. The first Pokemon which shows up on screen is Tangela, which Ash is quite happy about since it was the last one he tried to catch. The other one, however, Professor Oak questions how Ash even found, as it leaps up into view, revealing itself to be a Gibble. And that's where we'll be leaving things for right now. So what do you guys think? Did you like the focus Seda got in this part? How do you feel about Ash not catching nearly as many Tauros as before? Do you think Ash will take up Lieutenant Surge's training offer in the future? When do you think Koga will return? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!